You're watching Reality Check. Tonight, the debate over what is being called the super rich tax in this year's budget, which the government says in an attempt to ensure greater social or economic justice, but which the stock markets seem to have taken badly. But has the government truly penalized the wealthy while protecting the middle and other classes? Well, first, very quickly, here's what has happened. There's been an increase in the surcharge, which is simply a tax on your tax, on high-earning taxpayers who earn over 2 crores a year. If you add cesses, then these high-paying tax earners who were earlier paying about 36% tax will now pay between 40 to 43% tax. But how much is the government going to earn from this? Based on its own estimations, it only hopes to bring in an additional rupees 2,700 crores from this quote-unquote rich tax. How did we arrive at this figure? Very quickly, well, in the budget, tax revenue from surcharges on the wealthy in 2018-19 was estimated at about 37,000 crores. In 29-20, the government estimates that this will rise to an estimated rupees 40,000 crores. In 2019-20, I beg your pardon. So that's 2,700 crores. That's it. And this 2,700 crores, though, may have come at a price because the markets, as we said, have been falling since the budget, taking a hit of around $30 billion or rupees 2.3 lakh crores according to an estimate by Bloomberg. A large part, it is believed, because of this tax. So a 2.3 lakh crore hit for a rupees 2,700 crore gain is how some people are seeing this. Now the government could turn around and say, look, that's the wrong way of looking at it. As Ajay Bhushan Pandey, the Revenue Secretary, said in an interview to Indian Express, just like there was quote-unquote give it up, the surrendering of subsidies on gas cylinders, this is a giving back to the society. So on the basis of principle of equity, people earning more and who are capable of paying slightly more taxes for nation building certainly can pay more tax. But do the numbers actually suggest that? The super rich in India, like the world over, constitute a very small percentage of taxpayers. As per the government's own data, a bulk of the tax burden falls on those in the lower and middle economic bracket. In 2017-18, government data shows only about 14,000 people, or 0.03% of all individual taxpayers, pay taxes of more than 1 crore each. They paid taxes worth rupees 35,000 crores or so, or just 13% of all taxes collected that year, compared to the total rupees 2.73 lakh crores collected in tax from 4.7 crore individuals. Okay, so debating this tonight on the show, we have with us Sunil Alag, an independent business consultant. We have Gurcharan Das, author and commentator. Mukesh Bhutani, tax expert, always great to have him. Nitin Desai, former chief economic advisor, and Jayati Ghosh, last but not least, who teaches economics at the Center for Economic Studies and Planning, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Mukesh Bhutani, just to come to you first, because here in NDTV and on this show, we are not taking a stand on whether the government should tax more or less. We're simply looking at claims, whether the claim matches the reality. And here the government has claimed that this is their attempt to tax the top 0.1 or 0.01% because we want to bring about social and economic justice. But as the numbers show, Mukesh Bhutani, it's a very small number, well, both in terms of the number of wealthy and in terms of the actual amount they're going to be earning.
Well, the statistics that you talked about, from a market loss standpoint, that may not be a fair way to look at it. There are other reasons. I'm not a market expert, but there are other reasons why the market performs.
Sure, of course.
To your
that
other
was
point,
just an estimate by Bloomberg.
Correct.
So.
To your other point, yes, 2,700 crores in a total direct tax collections of over 13 lakh crores roughly gets translated into 0.25% of the overall collection.
But by the way, that estimate is roughly your estimate as well?
That's right, because 13
yeah.
lakh plus crore is the total direct tax collection target for 1920, and to 3,000 crore was the figure that I heard, very close to your figure.
Right.
So it's a minuscule figure. But I think the whole idea, it's been done in a fairly intelligent manner, leave alone the fairness or the otherwise. The tax rate has not increased. There are 2 additional slabs of surcharges. Now that perhaps gives a ray of hope that the maximum marginal tax rate is just 30% with surcharges, maybe in a year which is a difficult year, you're wanting to tax the super rich by levying Robin Hood tax. But then that defeats the argument if you look at the quantums that are getting collected because of the Robin Hood tax, or I must say Robin Hood surcharge. Well, maximum marginal tax rates have been, have been debated for many years. We've seen that India with high maximum marginal tax rates have suffered a lot of tax evasion.
Right.
But I think here the philosophy is, besides levying a high rate of taxes, that you're now levying differential rates of tax for different kinds of businesses. So now you have individuals, association of persons, HUFs, body of individuals, being taxed differently. The whole idea seems to be not to put burden on the business. So partnership firms are not covered, companies are not covered, but certain individuals which today are measured not more than 2,000 rupees. We've seen the list of 500 individuals in the public arena, that they are the so-called listed company individuals.
So you're saying they're the ones who are really getting affected. Jayati Ghosh, what do you make of it? Because on one hand, as we said, the government claims that this is an attempt to try and level the playing field. But on the other hand, the numbers actually show that the wealthy are anyway paying a very small percentage of tax. It is all the remaining sections of society who pay the bulk of tax. So this idea of selling it as a kind of, we are soaking the rich, does that add up?
No, I mean, I think it's really about the optics, but there are 2 points I want to raise here. One is that in all previous budgets, measures like this, the government has actually in the budget speech told us what is the additional revenue mobilization, the ARM, that comes from such a measure. Here we do not know, so we have to make these guesstimates. That's point number one. And the second is that this is coming as a surcharge. Most of this is a surcharge, and that's a real problem. It means you're not sharing this with the state governments. And this has been a tone throughout of this government in particular, that they are really clawing back whatever the Finance Commission gave the states by putting most new taxes in the form of surcharges and cesses. And I think that's deeply centralizing, that's deeply anti-federal, and I think that point needs to come out very clearly.
Okay, that's another interesting point about the fact that these are cesses and surcharges, so that that the center retains the lion's share. We'll examine that a little more closely in a second. But what do you make of it, sir? I mean, do you think that this is largely about the optics, and also, of course, as Mukesh was saying, that it's not perhaps fair to say that the market tanking was entirely because of this, but some believe that a large part of it was because of this. So when you're trying to drive investments and all of that on one hand, and get, in a sense, the top 1% to get more excited about the economy, and then you have this Robin Hood tax. Does that make sense?
Well, I would say this, that as a person who, I cannot object to the idea of taxing the rich more. There is not, I don't see any reason for strongly opposing that. What I would like to see is something which is more transparent in two senses. One, as Jayati said, they should clearly tell us what is the expected amount they will get from this, the ARM. They haven't told us that. You have inferred this from the gross numbers.
Right.
Everybody's inferring it. Second, I would say that the point that she raised about the share of taxes, if you really think that rich should be soaked a little bit more, it's not going to end just this year. It should be, why don't you, instead of the 10, 20, 30 rate, why don't you have a 10, 30, 40 rate, 10, 20, 30, 40 rate, and be done with it. So I would have preferred to see something which was, even optically, that would have been better. What I would argue is that the real impact of their proposals on the super rich is going to come not so much from this, but the 20% tax on the buybacks. And part of the reason you're getting that loss in because a lot of the, if you notice,
in the markets is because of that.
Because a lot of the guys are promoter managers who are getting fat salaries.
Yes.
But they were also collecting a lot of their income.
Right. You've also reduced the quantum of shareholding at the same time, and then you're taxing the buyback.
That is going to
could be one reason. All right. Gurcharan Das, what is your reaction? What is your response to this super rich tax? Because as we just pointed out, the earnings from it seem almost minuscule. So is this about sending a political signal? And does that political signal add up?
Well, even before there was a trust deficit, there had been too much, not deliberate, but the rhetoric of constant rhetoric, raids and black money, and this had created a fear and a sentiment that of a lack of security amongst the people who really are the people who invest in the economy and create wealth in the country.
Let me just take the gist of the point that I think you were trying to make to Sunil Alagh. I think Sunil Alagh, what Gurcharan Das was saying is that already those in the higher earning brackets, businessmen, industrialists, were feeling a certain lack of trust, raids, a sense of being persecuted, and now you have this super rich tax. Sunil Alagh.
Look, I mean, two things which I would like to say. Look, the rich in every country have to sacrifice a little more. So I'm not against taxing the very rich no matter what amount of money comes in. That's not the point.
Right.
The point that in the budget that I've raised all along is that, look, if the consumer doesn't decide to spend, then what happens is that virtuous circle can never start, because it's the demand that is generated, then industry starts manufacturing, everything gets going. Now, if you take the money from the rich, and if you don't give the middle income group, which is about 300 crores, some extra money to spend, then the economy will stay in that depressed state. So whether you tax the rich, I'm for it, but what else have you done for the middle income group becomes very important. And the amount of money that comes in is irrelevant, because here the rich who wants to give the money, take it from them. And what Gurcharan Das was talking about, this atmosphere of fear has to go. Then it's no longer conducive for any investment. Every single law in India has been made into criminal now. Even civil cases have become criminal cases. So if you bring in fear into all the industrialists, then even the honest guys will want to leave the country and invest outside where they feel a little more relaxed. That's the single point that I want to make, because they've done not one point which increases consumer spending. And if you don't have consumer expenditure, no jobs will get created, no industry will move. That's the point. That's the single point that I want to make.
Right. Let me just go back
and then,
to
of course, as the
Das.
debate continues, I have a few more points to make in any case.
Yes, I'll come back to you. Gurcharan Das, sorry, we have you back on now. So do go ahead and finish your point. You were talking about this climate of fear and suspicion.
Right. Well, I think, also India has been a stellar example of the success of the Laffer curve since Chidambaram's dream budget in 1997. That every time we have lowered the rates, the collections have gone up, compliance has gone up. So in this particular case, we should always benchmark ourselves among our competitor nations. There's no point benchmarking ourselves against Norway and Sweden and all that. And so I really think that there are too many of my friends who are now talking about leaving the country. And that's very sad, because they've built very good enterprises in India. And they should not feel a sense of insecurity. And frankly, to these people, it's an investable surplus. They are the people who invest in the country.
Right.
And what we need today, more than anything else, is investment. Private, if Mr. Modi wants to achieve that 5 trillion goal, and that's a great idea, then we need private investment, and you don't want to demonize the same people who are going to create wealth.
Okay, let's just put, since both of you have spoken about the this exodus of the rich, let's just put up that graphic on the screen, and then I'll come to you, Jayati. That basically, there are these trackers, these organizations that track the flow of the wealthy, and they've been pointing this out now for a while, that there's a rising exodus of millionaires from India. India is now the 3rd ranked country in the world when it comes to the exodus of millionaires. You've got China at 15,000. This is all in the past year. Russia at 7,000. India is at 5,000, and this has now been a steady number over the past several years. What do you make of that figure, Jayati? And to the point that both these gentlemen are making, that if you want to lure investment, you want to get the wealthy to invest, stop taxing them, otherwise they'll run away.
So I would just want to make two things clear. Investment is not happening because there's no demand in the country. And the job of the government is to actually generate demand, not necessarily through tax cuts, but through its own spending and in ways that will generate more employment. So that's number one. Number two, investment is not related to taxes on very rich, high net worth individuals. Investment is by companies. These are very rich individuals who have financial investments, who have other wealth, and it's not necessarily related at all. So I don't think that's a concern. I would argue that in fact, with the kind of inequality we have, we really have to have more taxation. We have to have a wealth tax. We have to bring back inheritance taxes, because the kind of inequality we have is obscene, and it is part of the low demand, which in turn is meaning low investment. So that, I'm not against a higher tax rate on the super rich at all. And I don't believe that that's the reason they leave. I mean, they leave because it's much more advantageous to be an NRI. You get many more privileges. You get to meet the Prime Minister more often. You get all kinds of other breaks.
I think
and you can still claim great nationalism. So I don't think that's why they leave.
I think Sunil Alagh wants to respond. Sunil Alagh.
You know, can I just tell Jayati that, look, we've eliminated in our country so many people out of the tax thing. All of agriculture is out of tax. Everybody who's below the poverty line doesn't pay tax. So you have about 3 crores of people, as they say, paying tax. But that 3 crore out of 10 crores are already paying. So if you want to enlarge your base, she talked about the elephant, the finance minister walking around in the field. You're actually inviting the elephant to trample everything. How much are you going to carry on taxing that 3 or 4 crores? The only way to enlarge it is that if you've given 5 lakhs to the urban poor or the urban middle class, saying no tax till 5 lakhs, multiply it by 5 times and say all agriculture, anybody earning up to 25 lakhs, no tax. Now, but those guys who earn more than 25 lakhs, please pay 5%. Otherwise, how are you going to enlarge your base? Your base is going to remain that. You already got 80% or 85% that are never going to pay tax in India until you get them out. So you're talking about 10 years later, you're leaving out everyone from paying tax. Get them in if you want to enlarge the base.
Can I just respond to that?
Okay, well, Jayati,
very quickly, this is the time when Mr. Modi has got 303 seats.
I have no problem
if he doesn't do it in the first year,
very quickly, Jayati. Very quickly, because I have to go to the others as well. Very quickly.
Yeah, no, I have no problem enlarging the base. All I'm saying is the millionaires who are leaving the country are going to countries with higher marginal tax rates for the very rich. So clearly that is not the reason they're leaving.
I think the point about tax rates and its potential impact on investment savings, if you're focusing on personal income tax rates, I think it's quite mistaken. The rates that we ought to be worrying about are our corporate tax rates. Because there we are seriously out of line, and that's what really affects the incentives to invest and so on. So
when you say out of line, you're saying, what are we, too high or too low?
We are way too high.
Way too high,
Way too high compared to our competitors, and that's what affects the urge to invest more than the personal income tax rates that you yourself mentioned the number, that the total amount of money we collect from the rich is minuscule. Compared today, my estimate is that the share of profits and high incomes, that is salaries which are the equivalent of profits in national income, is probably in the region of 40 to 45%. Okay, now that's a huge number. What we are collecting, 35,000 crores, is laughable.
Peanuts.
So I would say that the
taxation
of high incomes is not the problem in India. I believe I would
be happy. In fact, I'll just put that graphic up on the screen, because this is actually something that the government had to come out in its defense when it got criticized, saying that when it comes to other countries around the world, we aren't that high when it comes to income tax. So you put that graphic up. India is actually, so India, we're saying, if we say it's, at the highest band, the tax rate is 43%. You have China at 45, UK at 45, USA at 50, and Canada at 54%. But Mukesh Bhutani, I just want to ask you very quickly about the markets, because you said that you can't quite make that link. But I think the point that several people have made is that, when it comes to what are called these FPIs, right, which are what we used to earlier call the FIRs, the foreign institutional investors, now they're called FPIs, the sort of fear that they have is because they operate through trusts, and that trusts are covered under the super rich tax, and that they are now going to come under this tax, and that the government hasn't fully come out and clarified, saying will they or won't they.
Well, this was the primary reason why it caused mayhem day before yesterday
Right.
in the market. So I think that, and this is more an anomaly in the manner in which we call it Part 1, Schedule 1 of the Finance Bill is drafted. So we have 4 categories of taxpayers: individuals, partnership firms, cooperative societies, companies, and there are 2 levels of companies.
Yeah.
Alongside the individuals, there are other classes of taxpayers like HUFs, body of individuals, association of person,
Right.
artificial juridical person.
Sure.
Because historically the finance bills and the manner in which the finance bills are presented, this is one class of taxpayers, and the 2 additional surcharges apply to that category.
Sure.
Willy-nilly it applies to association of persons as well.
And that's why there's a
Right.
feeling that these FPIs are
Now
getting,
FPIs have come,
including education trusts.
including education trusts, right? Because
so
they're
all
also
forms of
association
trust,
persons.
all forms of trust, other than mutual funds which have a pass-through status. Now the market is saying that 60% of the FPIs are structured as an offshore trust, and hence this will apply. Government is reluctant to issue a clarification, and that is making them more
That's what
nervous.
is making the market jittery.
Even if people leave, their Indian income will remain liable to the same tax.
I just wanted to add
Oh, the
one
Indian
point.
income will remain?
Liable to this tax.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because it's not as if because you're living somewhere else,
Right.
your Indian income is exempt from Indian tax.
Right.
It is not.
So whatever you continue to earn here through your investments, etc., all that continues to be taxed at the same rate.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one point to what Dr. Desai said initially. So I think tax on businesses is highest. We haven't changed our maximum marginal tax rates for 20 years, whereas the trend in the last 5 years in OECD, non-OECD emerging markets is to reduce corporate taxes.
Right.
So India finds itself in an extremely uncompetitive situation on business taxes.
Right. Okay. Sunil Alag, sorry, you wanted to come in. Yes, Sunil Alag.
I just want to say, when you compare it to other countries, the other countries give you social security. So even if I have to pay 50%, I know when I retire, I don't have to worry about health. I don't have to worry. Here there is zero social security. So you're comparing apples with oranges when you say 43% is the lowest. It's not the lowest. I come back saying the rich must pay more. But if you don't give it to the middle income group, which can bring about consumer spending,
Right.
nobody is leaving India because of the high rate of taxation, if you ask me, or maybe some people are. Ultimately, they're leaving because the investment atmosphere is not conducive.
Right.
And until you don't make that conducive, look, you can keep on. I'm for taxing the rich, but give the middle income group some money. They are the ones who will spend.
Okay.
And if you don't start that virtuous cycle, I don't know how you're going to get out of anything.
So I think the point Sunil
Right.
is
And
making is that the chart that you have right now includes
Yeah.
social security contributions.
Right, which is something that we don't have here. I'm going to try to go back to Gurcharan Das once more. But I don't know if you had a chance to hear what Sunil was saying. I think you'll agree with that as well, that it's wrong to compare
I did.
us
I
with
did.
other countries,
But-
better
yeah,
developed
but-
countries, because they just provide better services. So,
Of course, and when I think about the people that I know who have companies in India and who are now thinking of leaving India, and I feel very sad about it. But what you've done is, instead of creating that trust, what was a trust deficit, bridging that trust deficit, you have exacerbated it. The fact is that high net worth individuals are the ones who are the big investors.
right.
And the fact is that you may say that only 3% of the companies now are left in the 30% range in corporate tax, and 97% are covered.
Yeah.
But that's a very bad way to look at it, because more than 50% of the assets and the taxes are paid by those that 3%. And
Right.
so what you're doing is, actually, these people constantly tell me that, look, this is what the tax rate is in this
Right.
country. And so it's not because they want to live a lavish lifestyle, but
Right.
they are geared to maximizing. They are good economic players. And so, this idea that having a wealth tax, an inheritance tax, and one tax, we are talking about bringing India to Indira Gandhi's days.
Oh
Do
my
we want
gosh,
to
okay.
do that?
That's
That was a terrible time.
That's very
That was a
strong from
terrible
someone
time
who
in our
was
country.
sort of a
I
Modi
was there.
supporter.
I was running a company at that time.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
it was a terrible.
Okay.
That's not what we
Okay,
want.
okay, that's a strong note to end on. I wish we could have picked that up to debate it more, but we've run out of time. We will come back to the story. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us so much, and Jayati Ghosh. That's all the time we have on Reality Check. Thanks for watching. Good night.